Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Get a Grip podcast. I'm Shane Bacon, joined as always by Andrew Putnam. And this episode, as every episode, is presented by Pinehurst Resorts. Of course, the playing of the 2024 U.S. Open. I think it's an easy argument to be made that it was the best major of the year. I think a lot of people were talking up the Olympics this past week and how exciting that was. Easy to forget the incredible battle between Bryson and Rory coming on the stretch at Pinehurst number 2. And so many amazing offerings around Pinehurst. And of course, this year, they unveiled the new Pinehurst number 10. That's designed by Tom Doak. Unbelievable golf course. Looks supernatural. Looks like it's been there forever. And it's not just that when you go to Pinehurst. You can stay at the Carolina. Great place to hang out. You can go to the brewery. Unbelievable and new addition there over the last decade. Looks like it's been there forever. The pizzas are great. The beers are awesome. All of that, jam-packed within about 2 miles of each other. Pinehurst is where you want to go on your next golf trip. And if you're thinking about doing so, or if you need to kind of push your buddies to go to pinehurst.com and check out all the offerings they have there and hit up all those golf courses because it's awesome. Andrew's been there. I've been there. Pinehurst rocks. We are, Mr. Putnam, we're in it, my friend. This is like 4 rounds, and we see where it falls. You are 73rd in the FedEx Cup standings right now. You got to be in the top 70 to get into the first playoff event. First thing I wanted to ask you, do you have any idea, what you need to do this week? Do you have any clue what the finish needs to be, or maybe potentially what would be needed to jump into the top 70?
Not really. I mean, it's hard to know. There's, the scenarios all change based on how everyone's playing. I mean, everyone who is outside the top 70 is playing this week. So, if you get some of the guys who are inside the top 70 play well, and then you're playing decent, it all kind of changes. So a lot of guys outside the top 70 are playing well, then you got to play even better. So it's hard to really predict exactly where you got to finish. Probably, I know it's at least got to be probably top 20, top 15, top 10. I don't know, somewhere in that range.
Can I ask you something as a player? Do you wish you knew this? I was online. Let me tell you this. The FedEx Cup gets bagged on a lot by a lot of people in the golf industry. I mean, they have changed it a few times. I know they tried to do their best. The PGA Tour tries to do its best to make the playoffs matter as much as it can with so much other stuff going on. And of course, the majors being so big and the Olympics. And then you always either have a Ryder Cup or a President's Cup on the back end of it. I enjoy the FedEx Cup playoffs as a golf fan. I think that they matter, and you get a lot of big names playing at the end of the year, and it's kind of a good primer for me as a sports fan with U.S. Open tennis upcoming. I love that. And then, of course, football, a couple of weeks away. I don't understand why the points have to be this complicated. And when I say that, I mean, as a guy that spent an hour today online trying to figure out what you might need in terms of points this week, and you being a player going to this event going, I'm not exactly sure where I landed. Do you wish it was clearer what you may need this week to move up 3 spots or to get into a position? Or is it, to your point, it's so fluid that it would just be a guessing game? Because if number 74 through 80 all finish top 10, then that changes maybe what you're trying to do.
Yeah, it is tough. I mean, they do have someone, for the casual golf fan or even the serious golf fan, it is harder, being at home trying to figure it out. But they do usually have a guy there with a computer, when you're finishing this week, that is doing the live tally, and you can kind of go and look and see what's going on, and they'll tell you. So we get a little more information than the viewer, but they got a data guy, yeah, someone who knows what he's doing. But it is complicated because there's so many different scenarios. It's hard to know. You move one spot and everything changes, and so you don't really know until you're coming down to the right at the finish.
So again, the FedEx Cup points are very complicated. I don't know what they mean. It's hard to quantify, but Brendan Todd is currently 70, so he's the guy in. Victor Perez is 71st. He's the guy out. Brendan Todd has 668 points, I believe. Victor Perez has 633, and you're at 625. So whatever that means, I don't know. I'm assuming it means, like you said, finish top 20, top 15, top 10, something like that. You're coming off a great week, and I thought it was really interesting. A couple of weeks ago, going into the 3M, you said you felt like you found something in that last round, I think at the CUDA, and you said something seemed to switch with your golf game. And then you got off this great start at the 3M. You shoot 67, 66 going to the weekend. I think you were either in the final group or the second to last group then. And then you get the walk and talk on Saturday, Putnam. So CBS, kind of put you in line for the walk and talk. How does that work? I think the walk and talk is relatively new to golf fans, but I don't think everybody understands how the process works. Like, do they hit your agent up? Do you say, I'd be down to do this? How does that process work kind of day before that walk and talk is supposed to happen on the golf course?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the beginning of the year, they kind of send out a feeler to your agent to see if that's something you'd be interested in. They think they only do, the last two groups. If you're within those groups, they consider you. And so basically right when I finished on Friday, they approached me saying, hey, we'd love to, maybe get you to do a walk and talk if you're open to it. And I said, sure, yeah, no problem. And then they kind of clued me in. I think that next day they kind of let me know, like, hey, on 14, guy will come up and you'll get some headphones and that's when you'll be on. But yeah, definitely a strange, I mean, obviously not an ideal situation for me to get it at that point. I mean, in back of my mind, I'm thinking like, are they going to still be asking me to do this? I'm 4 over par. Right. I'm playing terribly. I mean, I'm probably, 30, 40th place, like literally just playing awful that day. And then I come up to 14 and the guy's standing there with the headphones and I'm like, all right, I guess it's on, I guess I'm doing this. I don't know. Go. I mean, I guess it was the plan the whole time, but in the back of my mind, I was like, maybe they don't want me at this point, but it turned out okay.
Yeah, I mean, I listened to it. I thought you did a great job, especially considering the situation. I mean, obviously, I know you're frustrated not playing the way you were hoping to play in that third round. Do you think you could back out? Like, is that an option, you think, if the guy said, like, did the guy say, hey, are you still down to do this? Or was it more, here are the headphones, we're going to talk to you after your tee shot?
I'm pretty sure you can back out if you really want to, but the guy didn't give me the option, really. He's like, hey, Mike, here's the headphones. And if I was just like, no, dude, I'm not doing it, I'm sure they could have pivoted. But yeah, I mean, I agreed to do it. And so it's like, that's just how golf is, it's just, you can't plan like how your day's going to go. So for the viewer, I'm like, I'm not going to say no. I mean, it's just, that's our everyday thing we're just going through. I've had a lot of instances where I've played poorly when I didn't want to. So that's how it is.
Yeah, and I mean, I actually think in a way, I know for you at the time it's not ideal, but I think for a fan that's cluing in, especially somebody that's watching the 3M, you're talking hardcore golf fans, getting a sense of somebody that's struggling in that position is probably as insightful as getting commentary for somebody that's, shooting 65 in that position, right? I mean, you giving people an idea of, I've got a few holes left to play in this round. What am I trying to do? What hasn't worked to this point? Yeah. I think that if you're willing to do it as a player, I think that insight can actually be more valuable to somebody watching the golf.
Yeah, and I felt like Trevor was he was tiptoeing around it a little. Like he didn't know what to really ask me in that moment. He was a little, he didn't want to be too forceful, like, hey, what's gone wrong today? Basically, he was trying to be positive and then he changed the subject, but I would have been okay with it. I mean, like as a player, I felt like it was one of those rounds where, it was obviously super windy. And if you're a little bit off, I missed a couple fairways by a yard or two where the other rounds I didn't. And you kind of just missed a handful of putts inside 10 feet that I made the other days. And so I really didn't feel like I was that off, but the score showed that I was completely different than the other rounds. So he could have been a little more invasive, I guess, with his questions, and it would have revealed a little bit more. But I mean, because some days like, dude, I am so far off. Like I'm hitting it all over the place. I'm scrambling to be this good. I mean, that day felt like I was a little off. I felt like I was scoring terribly. Like I could have been around even 1 under and it wouldn't have felt much different. But those things, yeah, I mean, it's good for the fans to see. I mean, usually when they're watching a telecast, they're seeing everyone who's playing well. Like it's all a highlight reel. And it's just not reality of how it is on the tour.
Yeah. The reality is like you're going to have the rounds that are up and down, and then occasionally a guy plays 4 great rounds and he wins. How proud of yourself were you with that final round? Because you shoot 75 on Saturday, you kind of fall down the leaderboard, and then you bounce back with 66. Kind of goes back to what you were talking on the pod after the CUDA, where you said, I feel like I found something in that final round. I'd say that bounce back Sunday round at the 3M is probably the best indicator to somebody that has found something, because even after a bad day, you're still able to go out there and play arguably the best run you had all week. How proud of yourself were you with that Sunday round?
Yeah, I played great. I mean, my third round, like I had 2 5-footers to finish the round. I hit a really great shot in the 17. I mean, I just was so out of it. My putting, I just was missing everything low. I think they slowed the greens down that day because they said the wind was supposed to be up, and they sent us a text prior to the round. So my speed was off all day long. I feel like I've listened to Tiger say that a million times in press conference before, but like I just couldn't. I don't know. I just couldn't see the line. I admit, that would have been nice to make those two. I would have felt a little bit better, and then because you just know, like, if you just kind of hang around, you can have a good day. I played really well Sunday. I wish I wouldn't have bogeyed the last hole. I mean, that was kind of a bummer. It was one of those finishing holes where the wind's just whipping off the left, and you kind of faced with a choice of like, hey, I'm just going to stick to my routine. I'm going to play how I have been. Or you can, pull hook it left and you're going to lay up and you're going to not make worse than a par, or you can just go for it. And, if you neck it at all off the heel of the club, I mean, it's going in the water. My ball bounced on the land a couple times, went in the water, but if you hit a good drive there, you can make an eagle. So I'm glad that, I stuck to my routine, tried to hit a, decent shot. A lot of guys kind of hook it left there. But overall, I mean, yeah, I played a really great round. I mean, minus that hole, it was kind of how I played the previous couple rounds.
Golf is a weird sport, right? I mean, you play 75% of that week, you play excellent golf. You have one round where you don't play great. How are you able to handle looking back at a week like that and go, let me make sure I focus on the 75% that was great versus the 25% that wasn't? Are you able to do that? Like, do you look back at that week and say, it was a good week for me? Or do you look back on that week and say it was a missed opportunity considering the way I played Thursday, Friday, and putting myself in that position? Like, how are you kind of, as a week and a half or whatever after, how are you looking back on that week as kind of as a personal journey?
I mean, obviously the first like couple hours after the round, you're feeling like it's a missed opportunity. And then the further you get away from a tournament, I think Rory talked about that. The further you get away, you're kind of able to gain a little more perspective, but it still feels a little mixed emotions when you play that well and you kind of have that bad of a third round. You feel like you miss something there. I mean, it's nice to be in contention and play well. I mean, that's the goal every week for me, is try to get in contention, because that's the most fun, the most memorable moments of my career is when you have a chance. And didn't give myself a chance on Sunday to win. I mean, I gave myself a chance to have a good tournament and finish decent, but yeah, I mean, I did a lot of good things. I know my game is in a pretty decent shape. I know that it's, I feel like I'm in a spot where I can play well. So mentally it's good, gives me a little more confidence going into the final stretch.
What about Sedgefield? What about this golf course this week? What should people that are going to be cluing in on, like Saturday, Sunday, what should they be expecting to see? What does it kind of present? What are the goods and the bads in terms of is it a bomber's paradise? Is it an iron play golf course? What's kind of the focus for you this week?
I mean, it's super old school style golf course. It's pretty fun to play. I mean, the front nine's very different. You only hit maybe 1 or 2 drivers, and then back nine is a lot of drivers for me, I would say. So, it's typical super heavy Bermuda. Greens are probably some of the best we see all year. I mean, just Bermuda that rolls really true. It's going to be a marathon week, I feel like. I mean, we were looking up the weather, that tropical storm is kind of rolling around, and my weather app was showing 1 to 2 inches of rain Thursday and Friday, and then we're looking at another guy's the AccuWeather. It was showing like 14 inches of rain Thursday, 14 inches of rain Friday. So we're like, I mean, that's a pretty wide margin.
A little bit of
those
a
guys
difference.
they don't have to be very accurate to keep their job, but
It's got to
like
be the easiest job in the world, right? Meteorology.
Yeah.
You're just guessing. I feel like it's always a guess.
You're just shooting your shot and whatever happens. But on like 14 inches of rain, I mean, that's literally a washout. Like, we're not going to play for 2 days. So I think it'll be, I don't know. I always feel like they overestimate. Like, people are always like, it's going to blow 40 tomorrow. Like, we're not going to play. That never happens. Come on. 14 inches of rain, it's not happening.
I feel like meteorology is a total guess. And, you know, I mean, no offense to meteorologists out there, but honestly, I just feel like you say something and it's half the time it's right and half the time it's wrong. You know, the other thing I think is a complete sham are these turbulence forecast apps. You know, if you're like, I flew out of basically flew out of the tropical storm yesterday. I was doing Korn Ferry and had to fly out on Monday. And I'll occasionally hop on, if I know it's going to be stormy or bumpy, I'll hop on one of the apps just to see what the prediction is. They are never right. And they're not even close. If it says it's going to be a smooth flight, it's always bumpy as hell. If they say it's going to be bumpy, it's always smooth. I don't know how they do the prediction on the app, but somebody's got to figure out that technology because I feel like it's off.
Dude, I'm dialing on those apps like every single time I fly. I got an app on my phone, but you got to look up the clear air turbulence part because that is sometimes an issue. But there's one where you can see the pilot reports of turbulence and stuff, and it's not that accurate, but you know, it tries to give you peace of mind. Like, okay, I know when there is bumps and you expect it, but it does freak you out when you're like, we're not supposed to have bumps now. What are we doing?
That's always my favorite. Like, smooth flight. I had one. I flew back from Denver a couple weeks ago, and it was total smooth flight, no weather in the area, and about an hour in the middle of the flight was just bumpier than I'd had most of the year. I was like, where? But like you said, the clear turbulence is the weird one, right? That's the one that the pilots don't know it's coming, and it just kind of bumps you up and down, and it kind of freaks you out a little bit. How are you about flying? I mean, you fly all the time. I fly a lot. Do you like flying? Are you comfortable doing it? Does it freak you out? Where are you at?
I mean, I'm doing a lot better than I used to. I mean, me and my wife had a really rough year of travel last year. I had a panic attack on a flight from Hawaii to Vegas. It was right after COVID, and I had COVID, and it was like 3 weeks after. My heart rate was all weird. We've taken off, and like my blood went out of my head, and I thought, I don't know, I never had a panic attack. I didn't know what it was. It was something with my heart because COVID was a weird thing. My heart rate was all weird and thought I was dying. I was in the middle of the ocean flying from Hawaii, and I'm laying, I remember, on my dad's lap thinking like, dude, I'm done for. Like, I'm in the middle. No one can help me. And survived. You know, I had an ambulance take me off the flight. Like, for 4 hours straight, I thought I was just dead. And then a couple months later, we were similar flight to what you had. We had a super stressful morning. Our car didn't show up in the morning, my wife and two little toddlers. And my wife's chugging a coffee, and we're getting on this flight, and the dude's like, we got to hurry up to beat this storm. And we're like, oh, great. We're on one of these little regional jets.
Just what we want to hear.
Exactly. And we're both sitting next to our kids. She's in the other aisle. Hopefully my wife's okay with me sharing this story, but we're taking off, and she gets when it's bumpy, she starts throwing up, but she's like the kind of thrower upper where it's like, you think someone's like someone's screaming, like she is violent.
Okay.
And so we're taking off, it's bumpy, and I see her over there, like, doing this thing and starting to hyperventilate. And I'm just like, uh-oh, this is not good.
This is happening.
I'm sitting next to our son, and he's like, I'm not feeling good. So I'm holding like a plastic bag. All of a sudden I get a tap on my shoulder from the guy sitting next to him, and he's like, hey, I think your wife needs your help. And I look over, and no joke, like, she had this weird thing that happened to her where like she clenched up and like couldn't move her like fingers or face, and she was like trying to ask for help, but she couldn't even talk, like her tongue like stuck. So she
goodness.
Dude, it was the freakiest thing. And I looked at her like, I almost started laughing because I'm like, you're joking, right? And then it hit me, and this dude's like, no, she needs your help. And I like get out of my seat, jump over there. And she had this like, it was this crazy thing where like she couldn't move her legs or hands or whatever. Then my son is like crying because I got up and left him, and he's by himself next to the stranger. So then I throw my other kid over there because I got to be by my wife because she's like throwing up, but she can't even, dude, it was the most dramatic thing ever. And then, my kids are over there fighting in their seats. No one's helping us. I'm like, dude, can I have some help? My wife's like paralyzed here. She's throwing up. My kids are over there hitting each other. Like, please, come on. This is crazy. And then I'm like, then she gets off the flight and I'm like wheeling her through the airport she's on like a wheelchair. And then I got my 2 kids with me and I got like 3 bags. And, the wheelchair guy's like, well, I can't go any further. I'm only authorized to get you off the flight. And I'm like, okay. So I'm pushing my wife through the airport. My 2 kids are running in the stores, grabbing toys. I'm just like, kids, do you see your mother right now? She's in a wheel. Like, it was the craziest, travel day. We ended up getting to Sea Island. She got all these tests. It was fine. It was just like a combination of like hyperventilation, too much caffeine, panic attack. I don't know, but dude. I was actually like in the final group playing on Saturday at Sea Island that week, and it was just like me and my wife were looking at each other like, what? How is this? How is this even like? This is crazy. So then getting on the next flight after that experience.
4 days ago, whenever this was all happening, now I'm playing excellent golf. Yeah.
Getting on a flight that next Sunday trying to get out of there, we were like both tripping. We're like, all right. She's like, I might need some, anti-anxiety medicine for this next flight. And I'm like, yeah, I'm there with you. That was traumatic. So
there are plenty of things as a parent that are a bummer. I mean, there's a million things that are awesome. There are plenty of moments as a parent that just aren't fun.
Yeah.
And traveling and being on an airplane with multiple kids, I'd say is about as high as you can get on that list. It's just, granted, there are certain flights I'm sure that are smooth and easy and whatever. But when I go on planes, I mean, I got 2 little kids. We travel with them occasionally, not a lot. I know you travel all the time with your family, but I'll see parents getting on the plane with their 2 kids or 3 kids, and you just want to have a gift for them. You want to buy them a drink, or you want to give them a snack or something to give them, because for the next 2 hours or 3 hours or however long the flight is, those people are going to be at the highest level of stress that they basically can get to.
Yeah. And I mean, typically you got people around you who have had kids and they understand and they're like helpful. And then you get the occasional person who's like never had a kid before, and you're like, you were a kid at some point. Like, you were like this. Right. Like, don't be judging me like that. But yeah, it's stressful. But we're kind of out of it's not too bad right now for us. The kids can watch an iPad or something. We're like, travel days, anything goes. We're just as low stress as we can. But in a couple of months, we're going to be thrown back into the wolves.
Yeah,
got a newborn coming, so
you're gonna be right back to it. I want to get back to the golf for just a minute, because I wanted to ask you about the stress of this week. I mean, I'm assuming there are plenty of weeks that are stressful. Does this week to you feel like the most stressful week of your year? And if it is, or if it's close to, how do you kind of push that aside come Thursday and just go out and play? Because you've obviously been playing some solid golf the last few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm kind of on like I'm in the outside looking in at this point. So I feel like there's, it's all upside if I play well, which is a nice feeling. And I mean, every week is somewhat stressful. Every week we have expectations we're trying to meet and trying to play well. And this one's just a little more, definitive of, if we don't play well, I'm basically going home for a while. And so, I think the first few days, obviously you're trying to, first things first is make the cut and give yourself a chance in the weekend. And then probably you're just kind of playing for position for the final day, and hopefully just take the same mindset of just trying to get in contention. That's every week, I feel like that's where I have my most fun, most memorable experiences of being in contention, and I haven't done it a ton, as much as I want to do in my career, but if that's the goal and feel like I'm playing decent, who knows?
What did you find that final round at the CUDA carrying into the 3M and obviously coming into this week? What do you feel like has clicked, if you will, in your game? What what do you feel like you've switched on or whatever? Because like I said, I mean, 3 out of the 4 rounds you played excellent at the 3M, and then you played great at the CUDA, and you mentioned, it's kind of continued on this week.
Yeah, I think my my timing just been a little bit off with my driver. I feel like my hips tend to take over a little bit and get quick when I'm not seeing the ball fly the way I like it. I actually switched drivers that week, which I played a ping. I think I mentioned to you that fell off a golf cart and playing, in some charity scramble, and I just was kind of like, I don't know if this is flying right, and it's hard, when you start to question your equipment, it's hard to swing with a lot of confidence. So I put it's the same driver, but just a new head. So kind of combination of both those. I feel like my timing's just probably gotten just a little bit. I felt like my timing was a little better that week, and I don't know. I do like playing at like high altitude. I don't know if you've played much like that, but when you're playing at 6,000 feet up, the ball goes a lot straighter. Like there's just not as much spin, right? So
Right.
it naturally gives you a little more confidence when you're hitting the ball and you look up and there's just not a lot of side spin. I mean, if you started offline, it's staying offline. It ain't coming back. But I mean, the drivers nowadays they're built pretty good. I mean, if you're making decent contact with it, they're flying pretty straight. So I feel like I always get a little bit of confidence coming off a week playing at high elevation. I don't know if that sounds strange, but I don't know what your experience is with that. But that's me.
Yeah. Like, listen, when you hit the ball far or it goes deeper than it typically goes off your face, I think it's going to give anybody a little bit of confidence. You go to Denver and all of a sudden you're hitting 8-iron from, 205 or something, and you kind of go, this is wild. I mean, I just did the Utah Championship on Korn Ferry, and it's at altitude. I think it's 3,200 feet or something like that at that golf course at Oak Ridge. And, you got guys like Matt McCarty, who's not the longest guy on the Korn Ferry Tour, nearly driving par fours that are 380, 390. I mean, that's fun. Even for pro golfers, hitting drivers near greens or having 8 or 9-iron into a par 5 is going to make golf more fun, even if it's your job,
Yeah, and it goes straighter too, which is I've always enjoyed playing those ones. It makes me feel good about myself being a shorter hitter. How was it watching those guys? I know you mentioned how talented some of these younger guys are coming up, and I saw a little bit of the coverage at my home club. They had a TV outside, and I was watching it, and yeah, I mean they were just smashing the ball around, shooting zero out there. What was it like? And watching every shot on the telecast.
Carl Phillips won, and we had kind of a situation like this last year. I mean, I've talked about this on this podcast. I've talked about it on another podcast. Is the immediate confidence these amateur and collegiate players have when they turn professional. I mean, obviously we've seen it with Dunlap this year in terms of winning as an AM and then of course wins as a pro, but it goes deeper than that. Like Adrian DeMonte Chazart last year, I think he won his first event as a professional on the Korn Ferry Tour and then lost in a playoff at his next event. That didn't used to happen. You didn't click in that quickly. And Carl Phillips, it's kind of a crazy story. So he had a putt at the last hole at the NCAAs at Stanford, okay? He was 6th, Putnam, at PGA Tour University rankings, okay? 6th. 6th gets you guaranteed starts on the Korn Ferry Tour. He made bogey on the last hole of the NCAAs. It dropped him to 10th on the PGA Tour University rankings, which got him potentially some starts, but he wasn't going to get in any at that point in the season because that's like a very busy stretch for the Korn Ferry Tour. So he goes and plays a couple PGA Tour America events, didn't play very well. Monday's into a KFT event and played great. I think he finished 13th in his first KFT event. So that gets you into the next week. Next week finishes 15th, gets him into the next week, finishes 2nd in that event, and then wins the 4th event of his Korn Ferry Tour career. So I don't know. I don't know what it is. I'm sure you get a chance to play with some of these kids either collegiately or when they get out of college. I mean, even if it's just, at your club or, going out and playing somewhere in Scottsdale, things like that. It's like you see the talent that these young guys have, but it's the maturity. It's understanding what they got to do. It's not getting in trouble. It's not being an idiot. Like those days feel like they're gone, And so when you see guys like Carl Phillips and he's talking about rest in his body and diet as a 22-year-old, you're like, bro, this is different than it was a decade ago,
Yeah, it's a lot different. And that, they're televising a lot of these college events. So I feel like certain guys coming out and they're used to having the camera behind them, filming all their shots. I know when I first turned pro, there's those moments when you're out there on the Korn Ferry for the first time and you see the cameras come towards you and you're like, uh-oh. Like the pressure's on. Like, I'm not used to this. Like, this is the first time I've ever experienced this. And there's some guys that, you'd see that happen. You're like, this guy just didn't play well, right? Once the cameras were on him. And that's something you had to kind of learn. Like, you had to learn on the Korn Ferry. That's when you learned how to do that. Now guys are like coming out. They're playing 5 or 6 college events that are televised and they're just ready. They're prepared.
Yeah, I called. So we've been doing calls with some of the players that we have in our windows a couple of days, like on Tuesday, Wednesday now for Korn Ferry. And I had a call with Sam Bennett. This was, 2 or 3 events ago. And I asked him about like playing Korn Ferry Tour golf. And he said that the collegiate golf courses and the amateur championships, like the big amateur championships, right? US Amateur, Western Am, things like that. He said those golf courses are PGA Tour quality, if not tougher than even some of the PGA Tour golf courses. So he said college now is prepping you to be that next level of pro, even beyond Korn Ferry. And he actually talked about the adjustment it takes to play Korn Ferry golf. Because as you know, I mean, Korn Ferry, you got to go out there and shoot 7 under every round, right, to have a chance. And that's a little bit different. Now, I mean, some PGA Tour events, that's the case. But a lot of the bigger ones, you'll see 11 under, 12 under, things like that win. And I thought that was interesting because it almost feels like college is doing a great job of preparing these players to play the hardest events the best out of the gate. And I'm not surprised when I see, some of these young players. Bennett's a great example of that. Plays well at the Masters, plays well at the U.S. Open. I mean, there are a lot of those types of players that feel like they're already adapted to tough golf courses. Was that the case when you were playing college and amateur golf? Like, did you feel like college golf courses, NCAAs, things like that, were they very tough golf courses when you were playing?
Yeah, I mean, our coach did a good job. He had a pretty good schedule that he would have us go. He'd have us play on the East Coast a couple times, Texas, and he always played golf courses that were pretty tough. They're different. And so that was a draw going to Pepperdine. Was he always wanted to get outside the bubble of Southern California, and I felt like, courses were just as hard or harder than the Korn Ferry Tour. I mean, they I don't know. I don't know if they get access to different types of courses being college, amateurs and not pros.
I mean, probably.
It's only a couple days that they play each place, and Korn Ferry event. It takes up a lot of time at these really nice clubs, and not a lot of clubs want to have them there. And so, that was the same with me. I feel like I played Carson Creek, Oklahoma State's course for
regionals. That place is hard, man.
I mean, it's the hardest course I've ever played.
It's so hard.
So hard, visually especially. It was the same for me. Some programs, that is a differentiator. Some programs, they don't travel as much, they don't get to see as much. But if you're at these top programs now, I mean, they're flying all over the country and playing everything. So they're seeing the best courses.
I think Karsten Creek, by the way, is getting redone or restored or whatever. Like, how do you? So you just make it harder? What do you do? Like, I don't know how you can make that golf course any harder.
Yeah, I got some demons out at that place, but I did shoot under par my final round as a senior. Kind of conquered some bad woes we had there my sophomore year. It was, the place was tough.
Your boy Sam Choi had a good week on the Korn Ferry Tour, by the way. He played well. Didn't play great, I don't think, the final round, but it was he seems like a cool dude. He was floating around. Seems like he's a good player, and seems like he's kind of a funny, quirky dude.
Yeah, I've seen the Korn Ferry do some behind the scenes filming with him. He was pretty funny.
All right, so your goals this week, like, just go play golf? Like, I want to finish top 10. I mean, do you set goals like that? What do you do mentally? Is it just go play and see what happens?
Man, I don't try to set too many goals. I mean, the first few rounds, I mean, the goal is kind of set, like just trying to position yourself for the weekend and just kind of take it as it comes. I mean, I'm preparing like I do every single week, and try to get used to the Bermuda is different this week, that we kind of have to get used to that. I'm thinking it's going to be a really long week with the weather, so a lot of patience. I got a different caddy this week. My caddy, it's his dad's 90th birthday this week, my normal guy. He told me a while ago, he can't miss that 90th birthday. Yeah. And he's only 33, so that's kind of
You
a
do the
wild
math.
do the math there.
That's wild.
That's pretty wild. 90th birthday. I'm like, you can't miss that. So I actually got my brother Joel on the bag.
Okay.
So, which is kind of fun. He caddied for Michael on tour quite a bit. So that will infuse some, a little bit of energy into the week. He's pretty excited.
How's Joel's golf game? Does he still play? Is he a golfer?
Yeah, he caddies at Chambers. He like double bags every day, so I'm not too worried about him being able to make it around. But his nickname is Ace. Okay, he's known as having all the hole in ones, but I just recently passed him, so he's pretty bummed about that. I told him he can't use that nickname anymore because he's
Not
used to be
around
the
you.
leader. He used to be the leader out of all the brothers, Michael, me, and that was his kind of claim to fame. But I don't know anymore. He's at 11. I'm at 12, so he's gonna have to start playing more and not caddying as much.
What's Michael at? So if it's you, so you're at what? You're at 11.
I'm at 12.
You're at 12.
I'm at 12. Joel's 11.
Joel's at 11.
I think Michael's at 6 or 7.
I mean, that's pretty incredible. You guys
the youngest
have.
brother. The youngest brother probably has 2 or 3. But,
I mean,
yeah.
this is like an article somebody needs to write. It's like the Putnam.
But Joel's a pretty funny. Like his game is wild. Like I've posted a couple swings on my Instagram. He's like a John Daly that hits at 200 yards, and he's 6'3". His short game is really good. It's really nasty. So he gets it around. But
well, that'll be fun. I mean, are you excited about it? Like, are you excited to have him on the bag? I mean, are you guys staying together? Like that whole thing? Is this like? Do you get to see him much?
Yeah, I mean, I see him when I'm home. He's right there, so I see him quite a bit. But I've never had him caddy in like a PGA Tour event, so something new. I mean, he caddied for Michael right out of the gate. I think they finished 4th his first ever PGA event.
Let's go.
Michael probably fired him like 5 or 6 times throughout their career. It was fired him, rehired him, so they had a lot of ups and downs. But no, this will be fun to have him on the bag this week.
So you won't call him Ace? Like you will refuse to say Ace when you're doing this? No chance? No.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
He's lost that. He's lost that one.
You should call him 11. That should be his nickname. You should call him 11, and then when somebody ever asks, you go, "Well, he's got 11 aces, and I'm at 12, so his number doesn't matter in our family."
That might work. We'll see how he feels about that.
I know. There you go. Oh, and you know what? You can't. You just gotta apply a nickname. You can't ask them if they're into it or not. That's how nicknames work. I mean, if they hate it, it's even better, right? That's the case. We'll play well. We'll be watching. We'll be following along. Excited about it. Do you know what time you're going on Thursday?
Yeah, I think 7:30 Thursday and then 12:30 Friday. So hopefully get in before a little weather.
Playing with anybody fun?
I'm playing with. Look, I got it right here. Let me tell you. KH Lee. Oh, they just. So I was supposed to be with Jake Knapp, and now I'm with Raul Pereda.
Okay.
So Jake must have pulled out.
Okay.
He must have just withdrew because they just switched that up.
I wonder.
I don't know who that is.
Let's. Now I got to check FedEx Cup. Now I got to check the points, see where Knapp is. Do you know? He's got to be.
I mean, he won Mexico, so you'd think he would be.
I know,
but I don't know.
Let's see. I'm going to look it up right now. 47th. Yeah, so he's probably
he's safe.
He's probably dialed. So he's going to take the week off. So let's go scenario. So top 10 this week. You jump into the top 70. You fly straight to the first playoff event, and you get all that stuff booked. Like, does the tour help you with that? If you're into an event that you weren't necessarily into a few days before, or do you have to do all that stuff yourself?
Yeah, you're on your own. I mean, they have people at the tournament who might have some options and housing options for you, but you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants.
All right. Well, we're
so the goal is top 70, and then to play the next week, got to be top 50. So the goals are always right there. So
well, I mean, you finish. Let's finish 4th this week. Okay, let's finish 3rd, so we do better than Michael and Joel did their first event together. So we're going to do 3rd this week. Just a shot outside of a playoff. And then the next week, we're going to win the first playoff event. And then that likely will get you into Eastlake, which will be fun.
Love it.
Now, last question for you before we go. If you win with Joel on the bag, what happens with the caddy situation going forward? He's out?
I think that'd be a good one and done for Joel. I mean, he'd be pretty happy.
Okay. Yeah. Like our buddy #Chad when he caddied for, I think, Wesley Bryan, and they won their only event, and he was like,
Oh,
Peace,
really?
I'm out. That's that. Yeah. I was like KFT or a PGA Tour event down in Mexico, and he's like, I caddied once, I'm out. That's that. We'll be rooting. Excited about it. Hopefully the weather holds, because I think this is one of the coolest events of the year, honestly, in my opinion, just because, again, there's rarely are there, let's call it 30 guys all playing for something extremely important outside of trying to win the golf tournament. I think this is, like, I push this a lot. I wish Friday TV coverage focused a little bit more on the cut. And I think CBS has done a good job of that this year and last year, where there's a little more of a focus on players battling late in that round to make the cut. Yep. This is a week where there's a lot going on, but if you can dial in all that's going on, I think this is one of the great drama weeks of the year, because it's almost like the Olympics in a way, where you watch the Olympic golf and there's dudes knowing that they could win a bronze and it's a big deal. This is a week where there's going to be, 5 guys trying to win, but there's going to be 15 or 20 dudes with a chance to keep their season going. And I think even outside
they did a good job.
Last one,
like last year, they did a good job. JT was the guy that was kind of just outside it, and it was pretty cool to watch him battling down the stretch. So I'm sure there'll be similar names and people. It's always interesting to see, like, there's a lot of, really big names that you're like, wait, you're not in the top 50. And you kind of recognize that, this week, right? They showcase that. So,
yeah, I mean, like Dunlap, which is weird. He didn't get his FedEx Cup points for the amateur win, which is weird, but he's floating there. Jordan's floating there. I mean, there's some names, like you said, that are floating. So should be good TV. We'll go play well. Keep doing what you've been doing. It's been fun to watch, and we'll catch back with you next week.
Cool. Thanks, Shane.